Hello, everyone. My name is Nelson Mota, and we are here to give you the feedback on the work submitted for Module 1.
Hi, I'm Frederik van Andel.
Hi, and I'm Rohan Varma, and thank you to you all for actually joining this course. It's really wonderful to see all the interest and activity already on the platform. We see that we have almost 2,500 students and from something like 126 countries. So that's really nice to see. And what we'll do over the next, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes is to just give some sort of feedback on the assignments that we'd asked you all to do as part of Module 1. So I'm just going to request Nelson to share his screen.
Yes.
And we will get started with the word cloud.
Yeah, we have asked you to think of 3 words that represent to you the main aspects related with housing. And as you can see, affordability pops up really big. And well, we couldn't agree with you more. Because well, we think housing is a basic need, and we could you could even consider it as a basic right almost. And affordability not only has to do with well, the affordability, but also with inclusiveness. And so it should not be a privilege only for the rich to have an adequate roof over your head, but of course to everybody. Well, and then another word that shows big is sustainability. And this is indeed an important aspect. And then we think we should not only talk about sustainability in the sense of materials, but also about social sustainability. And this brings us to the third word, community. It's true that housing is not only about houses, it's about creating meaningful communities. And we think it's nice that you find this important, because in this course we will also try to teach you more about how to create meaningful communities. A word that didn't stand out so much, I think we saw it only once, is the word design. And we actually hope that by the end of this course, and when we would ask you again to make this word cloud, we won't, but that this word design would feature more prominently, because we think that also design is an important tool for creating good housing and also affordable and sustainable housing. We think that a good design makes a big difference in housing.
And we already see that a bit in the next assignment, which was to create this visual atlas on housing. And as I said, it's really nice to see so much interaction in the discussion forum, but also people commenting on each other's assignments as well. And that, of course, is what we're all wanting to do. It's one big learning community. And with these 3 words that we asked you all to sort of put into your search platforms, for example, looking at Isabella's case, she's used housing, Chile, and incrementality as the keywords. And what's interesting is that, of course, we see a very famous incremental housing project developed by Elemental, Alejandro Aravena. And in fact, this is a project that we will touch upon later on in the course in Module 5. But it's good to see, let's say, design really at the forefront in her example. But when we see, for example, Malaz's very interesting post as well, it's about housing in Sudan. And there we see a lack of, let's say, design. And we see a lack of powerful housing projects that have been built. And he says that himself. So, of course, we see the challenge in different contexts and different geographies. And what's also interesting, actually, is that in his search, we see an example from India. So that's also how I would imagine, let's say, Google in this case works, where these keywords pop up different projects. And that's Charles Correa's Belapur housing project. Again, a project that we will discuss in this module later on. And then looking again at India, we have this post by Anuj from Nagpur. And we see clustering designs, but of course, this is clustering at the scale of a dwelling. And that's actually, that's one of the issues with housing, not just in India, but in other places, is that it focuses too much on the house. Whereas what we will try and do in the module dedicated to clustering, which is to really try and show how you can use this as a strategy to create community at different scales, to talk about clustering at the scale of a neighborhood and a township. But it's interesting to see, let's say, what comes up when you look at India in this case. And then going to, yeah, we thought this was quite an interesting, let's say, contrast. There are two people who are from the same town. And if I am able to pronounce it correctly, it's Chisinau in Moldova, in Eastern Europe. And in this case, Tanya has put in the words, but what she's done is to write it in her native language, which is Romanian. And you see a set of projects appear on the screen, which is really about vernacular housing in that region. And there's another learner from the same town who used the same set of words, but now writing in English, and we see a completely different set of projects. In fact, the projects now are these examples of brutalist socialist housing design. So it's also, let's say, interesting for us to see how semantics and vocabulary and the way people use these terms become very important, especially in an assignment like this. And perhaps what some of you have already faced is a similar issue, but maybe you're also trying to understand what we mean by these three keywords of incrementality, of typology mixing, of clustering. And of course, what we want to just say is that we will get into all of this as we go on in the course over the next coming weeks. We'll explain it, we'll unpack these themes, and we'll look at particular projects from different areas. So stick around for the next weeks, and we'll explain it better.
Yeah, and so whereas in the word clouds and in the global art class, we were trying to find different ways of mapping the state of housing worldwide, then of course in your homework assignments, we asked you to do this even more explicitly by looking into newspapers, magazines from the region where you live, and try to share with us, with the community around this course, and to give us a glimpse of some of the main issues regarding housing all over the world. So there were the discussions were super interesting. We could see, we cannot give feedback on all of these, so we just chose three. But there are many interesting topics and many interesting articles to look upon. So I invite everybody, let's say, to really spend some time reading these summaries, because they really bring very interesting topics. For instance, in this case, Motasem chose to summarize an article called "The Roots of the Housing Crisis in Egypt." And this is interesting. It's a relatively recent article published in November 2020. So just 3 months ago, and then again it touches upon the issue that housing is always something that has to do with management, and usually or policy, which usually has something to do with governments, and how we see it is top-down kind of management, but then also affects everybody's everyday life. So it also touches upon the life of all of us. And so in this case, and this article, rightly emphasizes how it's important that governments, the urban management has to be, taken into consideration very seriously. But also that homeowners, so private owners that rent their houses, they also have a responsibility to keep and to maintain the houses in good conditions for people who, let's say, were renting those homes and so on. So that really shows how the quality of our cities depends on the interaction between these two agents. And the housing crisis in Egypt, as somebody also mentioned in the comments, resonates with many other cases around the world. And then also this very interesting article that Irene Moreno Blasco shared with us it's very interesting because it talks about a case of Spain, where she noted that there is a very high percentage of apartment dwellings that in their case is 66%, which compares with 40% as the average in the European Union, but even compares with 20% in countries like the UK or here where we are in the Netherlands. So, and then she asks, why is this? So why there are so many apartments in Spain as compared with these other places in Europe? In this case, this is the reference. And interestingly, then in this article, they try to resonate these different percentage of or this particular housing type with the challenges related with the current COVID pandemics. Because of course, if you live in an apartment, and typically if they are small apartments, there are very few possibilities of, getting some fresh air or interacting with neighbors or just enjoying the sun. And that's something that can be really a big issue in these days that we are all going through. And then this article also gives a kind of an historical background to that, relating it with this trend in the 1950s and 60s in Spain of building apartments for low-income groups based on making them, to build fast and cheap. And apartments were usually used as this kind of type of housing or affordable housing. And this is the kind of potential drawback. We see this also happening in many other places in the world, as Nina also commented. Finally, also a very interesting review or summary of an article about Mumbai with this interesting title, Many Vacant Houses and Many Homeless. And this is also, unfortunately, a problem that comes back time and time again. So this idea that there are many houses without people and many people without houses, and which seems quite striking. So why is this happening? And what we see is that typically this is generated by a process where housing is seen as an asset, as something to make money out of. So really to extract value from, rather than to see it as a social good. And so if you just want to make money out of the government or housing agencies or whoever is in charge, values more housing as a commodity rather than housing as a social good. So there are high, or the chances that this phenomenon that Nishant is summarizing happens in Mumbai, but also elsewhere, are very high. And actually, we see this happening in many, many places in the world. So this is just a small sample of the very interesting topics that these summaries brought about. And I'm very excited with this exchange that this course has generated already. And invite you to stay with us in the coming 5 weeks to dive deeper into the state of housing worldwide. And maybe if I stop share now and to get back to see you, and maybe also to suggest that while some of the issues that we've just addressed in these summaries are somehow related with aspects that architects or engineers or urban designers can probably not tackle by themselves working alone, but we have a strong motivation to to pursue possibilities where design can actually contribute to address some of the issues that we just discussed, and many others that are also there in this forum. So in the coming weeks, and with now narrowing it down to these design strategies, incrementality, typology mix, and clustering, we will actually try and unpack the extent to which some of these design decisions may influence or contribute to address some of these challenges.
Indeed. So look forward to seeing more interaction and more activity on the platforms. And we will meet you all again like this next week as well. But for now, I think we could call it a day. And we hope that you've enjoyed Module 1. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.